Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Vibrate in Between podcast. I'm your host, Tiara Chantel, and I want to get into a topic revolving around boundaries. And I feel like that is a hot topic, especially on social media these days. And some people are in alignment with it. Some people don't really know the definition of a true boundary. So I feel like this is really heavy on my heart. So I want to talk about it in hopes of sparking something in you so that you can respect your boundaries a lot better. For me, myself, I wasn't always great at respecting my own boundaries. I didn't even have boundaries. I thought I did, but what I really had was requests and expectations and control issues. And I didn't take myself seriously, so how can anybody else take me seriously if I wasn't even really respecting myself? And I've come a long way. And I want to come on here and speak about that reflection because yesterday, it was my birthday. I turned 31 years old. And I did, a good amount of meditation. I walked in nature a little bit. And it was definitely a pivotal moment for me to see what are boundaries. So what do boundaries look like? Over the past few years, I've been cultivating what does a boundary mean? What does self-respect mean for me? Does it make sense? Because I come from a background where, long story short, boundaries was not a thing. Boundaries try to be a thing, but it was really like control, manipulation, expectations, dominance, a lot of narcissistic tendencies coming from family, loved ones, atmospheres that I was in, whether it be professional or personal. And now that I'm 31 and I've had time to reflect on some things, what worked, what didn't work, I want to get into boundaries. And I think what's really interesting is understanding the difference between a true boundary for the sense of safety versus having a request because it's coming from ego. And that's big for me. I genuinely feel like boundaries should be created coming from your heart, coming from high vibes, because you deserve to feel safe. Anything outside of that is not a true boundary. Some people, unfortunately, will mask, a really controlling request or expectation and force that upon somebody and try to make it seem like it's a true boundary instead of doing the inner work, which is what everyone deserves to do, to recognize, okay, I'm feeling insecure right here because of X, Y, and Z. And that's why I have a really high expectation that I need people to meet in order for me to be in their lives. Trust me, I've been on every side of that damn fucking fence, and every seat at that table I have sat at in one way or another, in one respect or another. And I understand all sides of it. I don't think it's so black and white. I think there's a lot of gray to it. But for me personally, if I don't feel safe, you are crossing my boundary. And that lack of safety, that sense, that perceivable lack of safety, is coming through because my nervous system is being heightened. I'm getting a little anxious. I'm getting fearful, fight or flight or fawn. And it's coming through because I need to listen to my nervous system. Something is being crossed. Something is being breached. And I deserve to understand where this is coming from. For that other person's sake, and also for my own sake, for the relationship's sake. I don't care if you are a family member. I don't care if you're my boyfriend. I don't care if you're a coworker, a manager, director. I don't care what your title is or how much money you have, whatever the case may be. Boundaries are boundaries. It doesn't sway depending on who I'm speaking to. And it doesn't mean I don't have grace either. I can have grace for people who are learning how to understand my boundaries, but I'm not going to be empathetic to my own disadvantage. Now that's the key. Understanding that you can have grace for somebody, you can have empathy for somebody, you can understand that maybe they didn't grow up with boundaries and yada, yada, yada. That's cool. But if you're breaching your own boundary by being overly empathetic to somebody else, then you're not respecting yourself. And that's what I learned about my own process. I would constantly, whether someone was yelling at me, cussing at me, calling me a name, speaking out of anger, speaking out of irritation, frustration, and just giving me a very unwarranted response where they're being mean and nasty and rude, I would take that and I would genuinely think that them sucking out all the empathy out of me to just stand there and take it as a sign that I'm actually being a good person, that I'm actually being, a child of God. And I laugh because this is me giving myself grace and understanding that that wasn't really the truth. That's a lot of people pleasing. That's a lot of, seeking validation. I hope you love me. I hope you like me. I hope you stay with me. I hope you stay in my world. And truth be told, if someone is cussing at you, yelling at you, abandoning, avoiding and being really disruptive with the peace, and don't get me wrong now, disrupting the peace is not just causing a storm and being loud and obnoxious. No. Disrupting peace is also being neglectful and disappearing and ghosting and, being mute, very avoidant, leaving in a certain way that's dismissive. That also causes storms. That also causes chaos. That disrupts the peace as well. And it breaches trust. So for me personally, when I would have the moments of just tolerating those things and just stand there and being, so-called present, I'm honestly in a lot of those moments, I'm ignoring my feelings. I'm acting like a therapist. I'm trying to understand where they're coming from. And I disregard how I feel just to cater to their own feelings because I upset them, right? I am learning. I've learned for some time now. That is not the way. So for me, this is how I go about it now. This is the solution, right? Because I'm really solution oriented. Learn from the past, correct the mistakes, do things better. Going forward, and as of lately, whenever somebody, a loved one, a coworker, a manager, whatever, stranger on the street, even a stranger on the street, let's say it's that. Let's say it's some traffic jam. Let's say it's someone having a bad day at a store, whatever. If someone's coming at me from a place of low vibration, not taking it personal is how I go about it. Easier said than done in most cases, but when you realize that their issue is coming from a low vibe within themselves, and that's why they're reacting in that way, then you learn to not take something personal. And that's what brings out empathy. Now, it doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself. It doesn't mean you can't stand in your square. Personally, when I approach somebody that is having a bad day, and whether I said something or they got a vibe from me or they accumulated every single thing they went through that day or that week and just lashed out on me because I was the cherry on top that pissed them off, I want to be curious. I want to understand where is this coming from, but also in the same breath, let them know I'm not going to allow you to talk to me like that, but I do want to know what's making you feel like that. And that sounds so simple because it is. It's just a matter of practicing it and being disciplined in that. Not letting the ego take over and be like, oh my gosh, why do these things happen to me? No, they're happening for me so that I can learn and grow. If I see a pattern where this person, that person, the next person is coming to me in a certain energy, that's just the universe's way of telling me, you need to pay attention, Tiara, and you need to understand where this is coming from. You attract what you are in a lot of cases. And it's not to say that I act like these people, but it's something in me that's attracting this circumstance. So what is it that I need to work on within myself so that I can become a person who responds instead of reacts? That is the truth. That was a hard truth to swallow, but that's a really pivotal thing in my progression, my evolution, my healing process, being a better person, communicating better, being a light energy in this world. Like, that is very important to understand. And it's not to say we have to be perfect, but the way we go about it needs to be more intentional. Instead of having a temper tantrum, getting back at somebody, hurting somebody, and justifying it as if, they hurt me, so I need to hurt them back. That is such a low vibe. I don't care what anybody says. That is a low frequency. There's a difference between standing up for yourself versus trying to hurt somebody back because you feel hurt. You can stand up for yourself and still be kind about it. But that is where emotional intelligence comes in. For me, the way I was brought up is if somebody puts their hands on you, you need to put your hands on them back. I'll be honest with you, I was such a sensitive child. I was an empathetic child. I was a kid that was like, no, I hate fighting. I took Taekwondo and I was like, I hated sparring because I saw so much violence in my life. That, you can show me the combinations, you can teach me how to do 1, 2, 3 and whatever, but I genuinely did not like sparring because it reminded me of violence in the home. So for me, if someone tried to put their hands on me, I would be hesitant to do it back because of the familiarity of it all. Like, what did it remind me of? And more than anything, I just loved coming down to a conclusion, a solution of peace. I wanted to radiate peace. I didn't want people staying mad at me. I didn't want to stay mad at somebody myself. So as I became, a teenager, early 20s, yada, 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 things started shifting. I noticed that being a sensitive soul wasn't really accepted in the world, at least in the atmospheres and the circles that I was surrounded by. So I pivoted and I adjusted for survival reasons. And, I didn't grow up in the hood. I visited a lot because my family was there. Dorchester, Boston, Rosendale, JP. I have a lot of family on both sides in that area. I grew up in the suburbs, born in Boston, parents, kind of co-parenting, kind of being together, kind of not being together, never married, that type of situation. And so when my family moved to North Carolina, throughout my whole youth, I was back and forth between Massachusetts and North Carolina to visit my family. So I have exposure. I'm not limited in that exposure, in that sense of, having some sort of grasp on what some people go through. But I by no means know what it means to actually wake up in the middle of the night because of a gunshot. I don't know what that feels like, especially constantly. I don't know what that feels like. So I'm privileged in a lot of ways, in a sense, in some respects. I went to a lot of predominantly white schools in my youth. And then as I grew up in college and things like that, I was able to go to college, get scholarships. So I've seen, in a lot of ways, all sides of the tracks. My biological father found out that I have another father, my biological one. He's Haitian. He was in Boston. Now he's in Georgia. So, I understand what it is to have family who, have made choices that weren't so great. He was in and out of jail in some ways for different reasons. So it's interesting how culture, society, social media, trauma, pain, movies, everything will try to teach you the way. And I really want us to look at this and get out of the black and white thinking. I'm not here to try to tell people what to do. That is a waste of fucking time. I'm not here to change somebody. Like I said many times, I'm not anyone's guru. I'm not anyone's teacher. I'm not anyone's priest. I am simply a human being. I am a spirit, reincarnated, learning from the past bullshit to apply what I've learned in this present experience. And anything that I feel is coming from the heart and that can be fruitful for somebody else, I'm going to share it on the podcast. So from my own personal experience, being surrounded by a lot of fighters and also being surrounded by a lot of people who flee a situation, who run, gone without a trace, as soon as you hurt their feelings, never wanting to hear from you again, that type of stuff. Pain is pain. My boundary is that I want peace. I want respect and communication. Do not call me out my name. Do not put your hands on me. Do not charge at me as if you want to put your hands on me. Do not scream at me. And also do not neglect me and be, in a sense, like gone without a trace, ghosting me, things like that. I understand people do things unintentionally and then they come back and they say, oh, I didn't know that was going to affect you in that way. Sometimes people think when they leave a certain way, it's better than screaming. In a sense, yeah, but that's still my boundary. So I'd rather have communication. I'd rather people, tell me what's on their heart and we can have a grown heart to heart. You tell me how you feel. I tell you how I feel. We're both very open, no judgment, no criticism, no ridicule, just being open to hearing each other, even if it hurts, even if it's painful, even if it's challenging. That's what it means to be human. It's worth the conversation. And sometimes people will tell you bullshit. Sometimes people will not tell you the truth. So that's when intuition comes in and you have to discern. You can't rely fully on somebody telling you something. That's a really high expectation. You can have some sort of expectation that's healthy and balanced where you're like, yeah, I expect someone to tell me the truth when I ask them a question. But at the same time, sometimes people don't even know the real answer for themselves. So how can they tell you fully what the answer is? If they still have some growing to do, which we all do, by the way, including myself, our answers that we give are based on the level of consciousness that we're at the moment. It could be the whole truth. It could be the real answer. But sometimes it won't be. Everyone's going to have moments where they don't have the whole picture set up in their mind, where they can truly give you that full answer. There could be some things lingering on the side that they need to still face. It's up to the receiver to focus on their intuition. So for me personally, I tune in. When I ask my boyfriend, my mom, coworker, whatever, a question, and they give me an answer, it's up to me to discern for myself, are they telling me the whole truth, half the truth, or all of the truth? All of the truth. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. It depends on where they're in their consciousness when it comes to certain topics. But I can trust in them in their process, and I can trust in them when it comes to where they're at in their consciousness, in their self-awareness Are they being in tune? That goes back to boundaries. Empathy. I can have empathy for you, but not to my own disadvantage. If someone is constantly unaware of their shit and constantly having a pattern that they're not really breaking, they're not really changing, then I have to do what's best for myself in protecting my energy, protecting my peace. Because if I don't do that, you naturally become the people that you're surrounded by the most. So if I don't want to be like the people that are not so self-aware and they have all these patterns going on that are of low vibe, low frequency, then I need to do what's best for me to distance myself and love people from afar. It doesn't mean the love goes away, because that's not real love. I have a genuine heart. So if I love somebody and I'm growing in my consciousness, learning how to love people more unconditionally, because I love myself unconditionally, I need to distance myself. And that's okay. That doesn't mean the love's not there. It means I love you so much and I love myself so much that I need to distance myself so that you can have a better grip on your life, so that you can change and heal, because that is your work. You are your own healer. Some people don't know what to do with that, but I feel like that's changing. The more the world is operating in a way of light and bliss and wonderment, curiosity, humility, joy, happiness, that frequency radiates higher and higher the more every individual does that. Even if they only do it for half the day, it still increases because the light is stronger. So giving myself that grace, giving other people that grace, but still being disciplined and staying in my square makes all that difference. It's worth it to me. I don't give up on people. I don't give up on situations. I state very, very, very clearly what I need for safety reasons in my nervous system. And if people cannot do it because of where they're at in their life, I distance myself from them. People have done that with me. I've made people feel unsafe. I've breached trust. I've stepped over people's boundaries where people are like, whoa, what the hell was that? Regardless of my intention or not, people have their own feelings. So people have definitely distanced themselves from me in their own way for their own reasons. And I don't have any, animosity towards that. I'm just like, I genuinely get it. We can have a grown talk. My door is cracked. If you're going to knock on it, I'm happy to open it to see what's up. But just know this is mutual in terms of us having a conversation on boundaries, intuition, and self-respect. Because not everything is so one-sided. You have to be willing to hear feedback and understand that sometimes what you're feeling is coming from a genuine space of, me putting you in a situation of feeling unsafe versus you being triggered, not perceiving something well, and living in the past of trauma, thinking that this is that, and it's not. I can be empathetic to it. I can hear it. I can sense it. I can definitely be present to understand that process, right? But that doesn't mean that you have if I could put it into words, it doesn't mean that you have, I'll put it simply. Sometimes people take their past experiences and put it on the present moment, which is baggage. If you constantly do that, it doesn't mean that you should. You don't really have the right to do that. The more you do that, the more you're creating hell for yourself. You want to create a heaven on earth for yourself and for other people. So if you're constantly living in the past, I'm guilty of this too. I'm not perfect. I'm not over here saying I'm holier than thou. I just understand where I was in that reality, and I took myself out of that reality. And despite what the ego tries to say about it, I don't dwell in that. I've pivoted. I transcended. I know better. I know truth. And once you know truth, it's hard to go back to the bullshit. Because it's a knowing. It's the difference between understanding and knowing. When you know something, it's hard to go back to your own patterns of trauma and pain and all of that. Taking the past and pinning it on the present and future as if that's what's going to happen and that is what's happening because that's what I've already been through. You're creating a hell for yourself. When I did that in my relationships, when I did that in my family dynamics, when I did that at work, I was creating my own hell. And I knew it. Like, I knew I was doing that the more I was like waking up, right? Before it was like sleepwalking. Before it was like I was so identified with that behavior, I didn't realize that's what I was doing until people pointed it out to me. I was, wondering, where are my friendships going? And then as I was healing myself and recognizing I need to do some inner work, I was like, wow, like this is some generational bullshit. And it's not to come down on it and to say, woe is me. It's literally something that is generational, but I have the power to break that cycle. I really do. I have the power to break that cycle. It's been breaking. I broke it because I chose to. When you look in the mirror, that's when you recognize I need to have watertight boundaries. Not expectations and requests and all this other stuff that I think is a boundary. No, I have to have real boundaries. And another thing about that is, I know it sounds like we're jumping around to different things, but it all correlates. It all connects. Yeah, it's not just about, when you talk about one thing, you have to look at all dimensions. That's how I roll. It definitely is connected. And when you're in tune and you know, all of what, not everything, obviously, because no one knows everything. But when you know there's more to life than just the surface level topic, then I feel like you feel where I'm coming from. It makes sense. You have the capacity to take it in, to tune in, to be like, oh shit, like, this is a spiritual moment right here. It's not a traditional therapy session. Not knocking therapy. I'm just saying, like, this is an elevated conversation. So for me, the boundary, I used to think the boundary was, people need to do what I said. Oh my God, that was such a big thing for me. People need to do what I say. No, that's not essentially, no, it's not clear. It's not like that. It's not cut and dry like that. Do what I say and we good. A boundary is letting someone have freedom. A healthy boundary is letting people have their freedom. Just like the Creator gave us freedom to make high vibe choices or low frequency choices. To make choices in the light or to make choices in the dark. God still loves me either way, but God will also correct me. So I'm going to apply that to my relationships with people. Doesn't matter if it's an intimate relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a work relationship. I don't care. A boundary is a boundary no matter who I'm talking to. It doesn't sway or get more strict depending on who I'm talking to. So boundary, a true boundary, is coming from a sense of safety, for one. For two, it's understanding that when you have the boundary, you don't have to announce it until something happens. And when something happens, you take action. So if someone is yelling at me And I don't like that. I'm going to tell them, hey, you gotta lower your voice. If you don't lower your voice, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to leave this room. Or I'm not going to see you for the rest of the day. I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of the day because I don't tolerate that if you don't stop yelling. If they continue to yell, I'm not going to give more warnings. I'm not going to give more insight in that. I already told them what it was. Based on their level of consciousness, they're going to do what they want to do. That's the freedom part, right? And then my freedom is doing what I got to do for me, despite how that may make them feel. I do it with kindness, though. I still demonstrate in a godly way what it is I want from them. I'm not going to match low frequency energy. So I already said what I won't tolerate. If they continue to do it, I'm going to leave the room, or I may not see them for the rest of the day. It depends on what I said that I need to do for myself based on what they chose to do. Right? But with kindness, with empathy, with a lot of love, unconditional love. But I need to protect my peace. And in order for me to protect your peace too, because I don't want to match your energy and be low vibe, I care about you that much that I need to remove myself. Otherwise, this could get ugly. Whether verbally it can get ugly, emotionally it can get ugly. I'm not trying to do all that. Protecting peace and really genuinely caring about somebody, you can care about a stranger. You can care about somebody that you don't even have a real deep connection with, like as a friend or whatever. No, like you can still care about people. I understand people have their own shit. No one owes you a damn thing. And this is why not taking it personal is very much so the key, because you're not holding anybody on a pedestal or their behavior on a pedestal to determine how you're going to feel that day. It doesn't mean that you won't have a feeling. It doesn't mean that you won't feel a little frustrated if someone's screaming in your face. You're going to feel something. Come on now. But when you get to the point where something really doesn't faze you, where you're not hanging on to it, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not dwelling in it and letting it affect your day. No, you feel your feeling. If you have a feeling come up, feel your feeling, right? Express it with kindness, not to hurt somebody. You can be blunt. You can be blunt and still be kind. But don't release your feeling, your emotion to hurt somebody. Don't do it in a way where you're trying to hurt them and get back at them. Don't do tit for tat. Don't do the matched energy thing, because that doesn't do anything for you, for that person, or the universe, other than create more darkness. It creates a momentum of darkness. We have a spiritual responsibility here. So why am I going to take something so personal to the point where I'm dwelling in it, where I'm hurting someone back, not tapping into my emotional intelligence, and then ultimately creating more chaos for the world because I want to have an argument, because I want to be right and them be wrong, because I want them to see what they did to me, right? That's childish. It takes a very conscious person, and I know we have some ways to go, some of us more than others. We have to understand that emotional intelligence is the key to boundaries. Intuition is the key to boundaries. Kindness is the key to boundaries. Standing on your square is the key to boundaries. When you respect your boundaries, you truly walk in your godliness, and you respect your boundaries in this way, right? But if you're dwelling in the darkness and you're like, oh my God, all these things are happening to me, look at it as an opportunity. That's how you flip it. That's how you see something as a positive thing, right? Instead of dwelling like, oh my God, why are these things happening to me? Feel your feelings, transcend that, and then look at it as soon as possible. Look at it as an opportunity to grow. What is this teaching me? What is this teaching the other person? We all came down here as a incarnation to learn, to grow, to have a human experience. Isn't that beautiful? Like, for real, that sounds so... I know to some people it's like, they might be listening and say, the hell is she talking about? But genuinely, like, the fact that you get to feel, the fact that you get to transcend, the fact that you have magic in you, the fact that you get to change the energy in the room if you put yourself in that room with that intentionality, right? But obviously people have to be willing to receive. You can't make somebody receive. All you can do is be the light and hope that that sparks something as you respect your boundary. Both can coexist, right? Because darkness and light is coexisting. And as we do that, we understand what is empathy and what is people pleasing. Again, being empathetic, being compassionate, but holding respect for oneself, having respect for somebody else, not being overly doing it, like in a sense of, oh, dang, I'm at a disadvantage. I'm run dry. My cup is empty. There's no reciprocity here. They're not willing to see the heart within me, even though I see the heart within them. Remove yourself. Distance. Love from a distance. That is very appropriate. You got to gauge it. You got to understand where people are at. Not everyone's on the same consciousness. People have things that they have to work on. And that's okay. We're not here to control anybody's process. We're just here to meet people where they're at, meet ourselves where we're at too. Being real with ourselves. If you got to remove yourself from a situation, from a job, from a place, from a relationship, so you can work on yourself because you're being real with yourself and understanding that this is what I need to be a better person, to heal me so I can be a healing force in the world. Okay, that is very responsible to do. That is a very loving thing to do for yourself and somebody else in the world, ultimately. You know, you're changing your behavior. You're doing a little rehab work. That everyone needs that. Everyone needs a little moment like that. Some more than others. What is your boundary? Write it down if you have to. What are other people's boundaries? How can I respond instead of react to people? How can I respond to myself instead of reacting to myself? I hope you guys find this helpful. This is coming from my heart. You know, boundaries is a big thing. If you don't respect your own boundaries, no one's going to take you seriously. But we all have it in us to definitely tune in, see what it is that makes us tick. Look at the trauma, the triggers. What can we do to transcend those things so that we can differentiate between what is truly hurting me now in the present moment versus, you know, what's hurting me in the past and what am I still hanging on to? What is an expectation, a request versus a real true boundary coming from a sense of safety? Am I being fair to this person or am I just trying to control them? Is this coming from ego or is it coming from the heart? Love yourself, take care of yourself, look at yourself, and give yourself grace as you figure it out. I love y'all. Thank you for listening. This was truly fruitful. Thank you, God, for giving me the message in the first place. Let me know what you think about this. If this resonates, if you have questions, comments, if you want to share something about your own personal journey, about boundaries and intuition, comment on my Instagram, DM me, follow me on all platforms, and I'll see you later. Bye.